Welcome to Midnight Murmurs, where the darkness speaks. Have you ever heard of the house at the end of the world? Join us as we delve into the chilling tale of a family who stumbles upon a mysterious mansion that holds a dark and twisted past. Follow their journey as they fight for survival and attempt to escape the horrors that lurk within. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling stories like this one. The House at the End of the World. Chapter 1: The Road Trip. The sun was just starting to rise as the family of four set out on their road trip across the country. They had packed their bags, stocked up on snacks, and hit the open road in search of adventure. As they drove along the winding roads, they marveled at the breathtaking landscapes that stretched out before them. They passed fields of wildflowers, sparkling lakes, and towering mountains that seemed to touch the sky. After several hours of driving, they came across a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside. The town was quaint and charming, with rows of houses painted in soft pastel colors and a bustling main street lined with shops and cafes. As they walked around the town, they heard whispers of a mysterious house located at the end of the world. Some claimed that the house was cursed, while others said that it was haunted by the ghosts of its former occupants. Intrigued by the rumors, the family decided to visit the house and see for themselves what all the fuss was about. They set off down a narrow dirt road that wound its way through a dense forest, their hearts pounding with excitement and anticipation. As they drew closer to the house, they could feel a chill in the air, and the hairs on the back of their necks stood on end. The house loomed before them, a sprawling mansion surrounded by an endless forest, shrouded in a thick mist that seemed to cling to its walls like a cloak. The family stood there, staring up at the house in awe and wonder, and a sense of foreboding began to creep over them. They had no idea what horrors lay in store for them, but they knew that they had to find out. And so, with a deep breath, they stepped over the threshold and into the house at the end of the world. Chapter 2: The House. The family's excitement was palpable as they drove up the long, winding driveway that led to the mysterious house at the end of the world. They were in awe of the sprawling mansion that towered above them, surrounded by an endless forest that seemed to stretch on forever. As they stepped out of the car and made their way towards the front door, they couldn't help but feel like they were being watched. The air was thick with an eerie silence that seemed to engulf them, and the rustling of leaves in the wind only added to the unsettling feeling. The door creaked open as they pushed it, revealing a grand entrance hall that was illuminated only by the soft glow of a few flickering candles. The family shuddered as they stepped inside, feeling like they had just entered a world of darkness and shadows. They began to explore the house, taking in every detail and marveling at the opulence of the decor. But as they ventured deeper into the mansion, they began to experience strange occurrences that left them feeling unnerved and terrified. Doors that were once locked became open, and objects seemed to move on their own. Voices echoed through the halls, whispering secrets and warnings that sent chills down the family's spine. Despite their fear, they pressed on, determined to uncover the mysteries of the house. But as the hours wore on, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. As night fell, the family retreated to their bedrooms, each one dreading what the night would bring. The air was thick with an overwhelming sense of dread, and the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls only added to their terror. The family huddled together, praying for morning to come quickly and for the nightmare to be over. But little did they know, the true horrors of the house were yet to be revealed. Chapter 3: The Cult. As the family dug deeper into the history of the house, they discovered that it was once the site of a cult. The cult was led by a charismatic figure who promised his followers eternal life through the power of a mysterious portal that he claimed was located within the house. The cult members believed that by offering up human sacrifices to the portal, they could open it and gain access to the other world that lay beyond it. The sacrifices were chosen from among the poor and the desperate who were lured to the cult with promises of wealth and prosperity. The family learned that the cult had been active for several years before they were finally caught by the authorities. But by then, dozens of innocent lives had been lost to the cult's twisted beliefs. The family found evidence of the cult's activities scattered throughout the house, including altars and symbols dedicated to the portal. They also found a hidden chamber deep within the bowels of the mansion where the cult had performed their rituals. As they explored the chamber, they discovered the remains of the cult's victims, their bodies mummified by the dry, desert air. The family recoiled in horror at the sight, but they knew that they needed to press on if they were to uncover the truth behind the house's dark past. The family realized that they were now in grave danger. The cult may have been disbanded, but its legacy lived on within the house, and they knew that they needed to be careful if they were to avoid becoming its next victims. As the family delved deeper into the house's history, they realized that they were in a race against time. They needed to uncover the truth behind the house's dark past before they too became victims of the cult's twisted beliefs. Chapter 4: The Portal. The family stood in awe as they gazed upon the glowing portal before them. It shimmered with an otherworldly light that seemed to beckon them closer. They couldn't resist the pull of curiosity and took hesitant steps towards the portal, wondering what lay on the other side. As they approached, the air around the portal grew colder, and they could feel a palpable sense of foreboding emanating from it. They hesitated, unsure if they should cross over, but something drew them inexorably forward. They stepped through the portal and found themselves in a world unlike any they had ever seen. The sky was a deep shade of purple, and strange plants and trees towered above them. The air hummed with an eerie energy, and they could hear faint whispers carried on the wind. They explored the strange new world, marveling at its beauty and strangeness. But as they delved deeper, they realized that the world was not as peaceful as it first seemed. There were dark creatures lurking in the shadows, watching their every move. As they tried to make their way back to the portal, they encountered these creatures, and a fight for their lives ensued. The family fought bravely, but it was clear that they were outmatched. Just when all hope seemed lost, they remembered the strange artifacts they had discovered in the house and used them to defeat the creatures. Breathless and shaken, they made their way back to the portal and stepped through it, grateful to be back in the safety of the house. But they knew that they couldn't stay there forever, not with the dark forces that lurked within the portal. They would have to find a way to close it, or risk being trapped forever in a world of nightmares. Chapter 5: The Shadows. The family was already on edge from their experiences in the house, but the shadows made everything worse. They couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and the shadows only added to their paranoia. The shadows seemed to move on their own, taking on shapes that were both familiar and unfamiliar. Sometimes they looked like people, other times they were distorted and twisted. It was as if the very walls of the house were alive with an ominous presence. The family members were too scared to speak about what they were seeing, as they didn't want to scare each other even more. They tried to convince themselves that it was just their imaginations, that they were tired and stressed from their journey. But the shadows persisted, refusing to be ignored. One night, as they sat together in the living room, the shadows seemed to close in on them. The family huddled together, watching in horror as the shadows grew darker and more distinct. They could hear whispers, like voices from another world, coming from the shadows. The family knew that they had to do something to fight back against the shadows. They searched the house, looking for anything that could help them. They found an old book, written in a language they couldn't understand, but it seemed to contain information about the shadows and how to banish them. As they read through the book, the shadows began to recede. They could feel the weight of fear lifting from their shoulders, and they knew that they had a chance to survive the horrors of the house. The family had taken their first step towards uncovering the secrets of the house, but they knew that there was still much more to learn. They huddled together, relieved that they had each other, as they waited for the next chapter of their terrifying journey to unfold. Chapter 6: The Escape Plan. The family had never felt so scared before. Their hearts raced as they contemplated the reality of being trapped in this haunted house forever. They knew they had to come up with an escape plan, and fast. Sitting together in the drawing room, they discussed their options. The doors and windows were all locked from the outside, making it impossible for them to escape through them. The only way out was to find a hidden passage or a secret door that would lead them to safety. The family split up to search the house for any signs of such a passage. The mother went to the basement, the father went to the second floor, and the children searched the first floor. They were determined to find a way out, no matter what it took. Hours passed as they searched every nook and cranny of the house, but all they found were dead ends. Just as they were about to give up hope, the daughter stumbled upon a loose floorboard in the hallway. She carefully pried it open and revealed a small staircase leading downwards. Excitedly, the family descended the stairs, hoping that it would lead them to safety. At the end of the staircase, they found a small room with a single window. The window was small, but big enough for them to climb through. With renewed hope, they worked together to pry open the window and squeeze through it one by one. As they emerged from the window, they found themselves in a dense forest. They had made it out alive. The family ran as fast as they could, putting as much distance between themselves and the haunted house as possible. As they ran, they realized that they had stumbled upon a dirt road that led out of the forest. They followed the road until they came upon a small town where they were able to call for help. The family was safe now, but they knew that they would never forget the horrors they had experienced in the house at the end of the world. Chapter 7: The Sacrifice. As the family huddled together, they knew that they had to make a difficult decision. They had been trapped in the house for days, with no means of escape. Their supplies were running low, and the sinister presence in the house was growing stronger. As they discussed their options, they came to a sobering realization: there was only enough food and water for 3 people to survive until help arrived. There were 4 of them. After much debate, they decided that one of them would have to make the ultimate sacrifice for the others. It was a difficult decision, but they knew that it was the only way to ensure the survival of the rest of the family. As they drew straws to determine who would make the sacrifice, tension filled the air. They knew that whoever drew the short straw would have to give up their life for the others. It was the mother who drew the short straw. She looked at her family with tears in her eyes, knowing that she had to make this sacrifice for them to live. With a heavy heart, she said goodbye to her family and walked into the darkness of the house. The family listened as her footsteps faded away, knowing that they would never see her again. As they waited for rescue, the family mourned their loss, but were grateful for the sacrifice that had been made. They knew that they owed their lives to the selflessness of their mother. Despite the horror and tragedy that they had experienced, the family found a sense of peace and comfort in each other's company. They knew that they had survived a terrible ordeal together and that they would always be there for each other, no matter what the future held. As they waited for rescue, they held each other close, finding solace in the knowledge that they had each other to lean on. They knew that they would never forget the sacrifice that had been made, and that they would always honor the memory of the brave mother who had given her life for theirs. Chapter 8: The Final Confrontation. The family had been through so much in the past few days that they had lost count. They had faced the most unimaginable horrors and had barely made it out alive. But now, as they entered the final confrontation, they knew that they could not afford to let their guard down. They had discovered that the cult that had once lived in the house had opened a portal to another world, and that something sinister had come through. The family had found themselves trapped in this world, fighting for their survival against the dark forces that lurked within. As they made their way through the winding corridors of the mansion, they could feel the presence of evil all around them. The walls seemed to breathe and pulse with a malevolent energy, and the air was thick with the stench of death. Suddenly, they heard a blood-curdling scream from one of their own. It was their youngest child, who had wandered off on their own. Rushing to the sound of the scream, they found their child being dragged away by a dark, shadowy figure. With their hearts pounding in their chests, the family chased after the figure, determined to save their child. As they rounded a corner, they saw the figure disappear into a room, and they knew that this was the final showdown. Taking a deep breath, they kicked open the door and rushed in, weapons drawn. The room was bathed in a sickly green light, and in the center of the room stood the cult leader, chanting in a language they could not understand. The family charged at the cult leader, their weapons swinging, but he was too powerful for them. He laughed as he batted away their attacks, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the family remembered something that they had learned earlier in their journey. They closed their eyes, focused their energy, and began to chant a powerful incantation. The cult leader howled in agony as the power of the incantation washed over him, banishing him back to the other world. With a deafening roar, the portal closed, and the house began to collapse in on itself. The family made their way out of the crumbling mansion, battered and bruised, but alive. As they emerged into the bright light of day, they knew that they would never forget the horrors they had faced at the house at the end of the world. but they also knew that they had triumphed over evil, and that they would emerge stronger for having done so. Chapter 9: The Aftermath. The family must come to terms with the traumatic events they experienced and attempt to move on with their lives. After the terrifying events they faced in the house at the end of the world, the family found themselves struggling to come to terms with what had happened. They had survived the horrors that were once lurking in the shadows of that sprawling mansion, but the memories of what they witnessed would stay with them forever. In the days that followed, the family tried to move on as best they could. They sought counseling, tried to find solace in each other's company, and slowly but surely began to come to terms with what had happened. The father found solace in his work, burying himself in projects and deadlines to distract himself from the horrors of the past. The mother found peace in nature, taking long walks in the woods and enjoying the beauty of the natural world around her. The children found comfort in each other's company, drawing strength from their sibling bond. As time passed, the family began to heal, though the scars of their experiences would never truly disappear. They learned to live with the memories of what had happened, and over time, they found that they could talk about their experiences without feeling overwhelmed by fear and anxiety. The family learned to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, cherishing each other's company and finding joy in the everyday moments that they once took for granted. They learned that life is precious and fragile, and that the bonds of family are among the most important things in the world. While the events at the house at the end of the world would never truly be forgotten, the family found that they could move on with their lives, taking with them the lessons they had learned and the strength they had gained from their experiences. They emerged from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. Thanks for joining me today for The House at the End of the World. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more spine-tingling tales of horror, mystery, and suspense, be sure to like and subscribe to Midnight Murmurs. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you have any suggestions for future stories, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay scared, and keep listening to Midnight Murmurs.